And I don't know how, it was months ago that I was actually at a Texas barbecue, a Florida, Texas-style barbecue, where Marco Rubio and Charlie Crist both appeared. It was absolutely one of the most awkward evenings. But guess who brought down the house at the barbecue? Can you just guess it? Was it Crist? It was Marco Rubio, who will be the next senator from the great state of Florida, and who's here in the studio. Hey, Marco, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me back.
That
was in Gainesville. That was in Gainesville.
That was Gainesville. That's right. It was our Star FM affiliate there. Now, he has, without a doubt, gotten a lot of play during this Gulf crisis. Now we're talking about McChrystal, and McChrystal will be fired. He's meeting with the president today. Our hearts are still breaking for the Gulf. I hope people don't take their eyes off of what's happening to this country. And because of mismanagement, because of BP, because of not having enough skimmers, and Charlie Crist is clearly trying to use this to up his profile.
Well, it's a terrible situation that's happening in the Gulf and with this spill, and it gets worse every day, and it's too bad. But after you get done with the photo ops and the press conferences and the sound bites, what's happened? What's happened is that the most powerful country in the world, the United States, has not been able to marshal basically every skimmer on the planet. And you would imagine that this is the only active oil spill that I know of this magnitude on the planet, and you would think that every single oil skimmer in the world would be brought here to help as soon as possible in getting this resolved, and that's not what's happening. I think yesterday there were only 20 working off of Florida's coast. So ultimately, yeah, I mean, he's getting a lot of press coverage. He's doing the press conferences. He's walking the beach and doing a lot of photo ops, but nothing's happening. Nothing's being done. And every day that goes by, it just gets worse and worse. And so this is a function of the fact that we have a government here at the federal level that's not just broke, it's broken.
Now he was out there basically praising the president's handling of this, his visits to the region, and also the escrow fund.
Well, I think that the administration has gotten up to speed. I'm very pleased about that. And I got to tell you, I am very pleased how they pushed BP. And we have encouraged that. I mean, the idea of a $20 billion escrow, I think is a very good start.
Okay.
And it's long
I get the
overdue.
point. I just don't want to hear anymore from him. Boring me.
That's in the eye of the beholder. I don't think people in Florida...
Yeah, what are the polls for Obama's handling of the Gulf in Florida? They can't be good.
Well, they're not. And beyond the polls, I think the reality of it is that this is an administration that's totally botched this. Their response was slow, and it's been inefficient and bureaucratic. And if you ask the people on the ground, if you talk to the folks in Pensacola and Panama City, throughout the Panhandle region of Florida, they would not agree with the assessment that this administration has caught up to speed on this. You talk to Senator Lemieux, who has been banging the drums for weeks about why don't they lift the Jones Act? Why aren't we allowing these skimmers to come in and work off our coast and help us with this effort? They are not up to speed, and unfortunately, it's exposed a broken government.
Now, Marco, you were leading Crist significantly when he was a Republican. Now, a lot of the polls, I mean, they're kind of all over the place, but one Florida Chamber of Commerce poll puts Crist in the lead now. Yeah. Is that 42% to 31%? What's going on?
Well, I don't know the details of that poll. Like I said, there's been a bunch of other ones that show it a much closer race, including some that show us in the lead or tied. And the truth is that when I got in this race, and you remember because I came to this show early on, I was 35 points down in the polls. And then what happened is people learned about me. They didn't know about me. They learned about me. They learned about the choice that they had in this election. And the more they learned about it, the more support we gained. And the same thing's going to happen in the general election. This is an election between someone with good ideas, someone with bad ideas, and a third person with no ideas. And as that becomes more apparent to voters in Florida, who perhaps don't know enough about me yet, those numbers are going to change, and I'm confident that we're going to be the winner in November.
So Kendrick Meek is at 14%. So he's clearly pulling. He's probably, those people. If he got out of the race, they would go for Crist. They wouldn't go for you.
It's hard to I think, look, ultimately, the majority of Floridians are not in favor of what's happening in Washington, D.C. The majority of Floridians are not in favor of the direction Congress and the President are taking America. And they're looking for someone that will stand up to that and offer an alternative. They're looking for someone that will act as a check and balance. And I'm the only candidate in this race that will do that. And that's going to become crystal clear to voters in Florida by the time Election Day rolls around.
Don't you have to do more, though, Marco, right now? I mean, you did it initially with that photo of Crist and Obama. But given the severity of this economic impact to the entire Gulf, including the pristine and beautiful beaches of Florida, the livelihoods of the tourism industry, all of that is in jeopardy now.
It is.
Don't you need to do a better job of tying Crist to Obama's response? Because Crist is out there saying, well, when the president visits, we get more resources. The fact is, this thing could have been sucked up a lot of it could have been sucked up before it reached the shores. Now
Right.
it looks like it's going to be Tarball Central all summer long.
Well, I think what's clearly apparent, Laura, is
You got to do that. You
Well,
got to connect these two. Obama and Christ.
Here's the fact. The fact is that every other governor in the region has criticized the administration for its response. The only governor that hasn't is ours, and the reason why is because he wants Obama supporters to vote for him in November. And that's a reality of politics, and that's got to be pointed out because Florida is suffering because we don't have the kind of straightforward, aggressive pressure that needs to be imposed on this
All right, when we
administration.
come back, we're going to open it up, 800-876-4123. Your questions for Marco Rubio, Republican star. Don't go away.
The president strongly believes, as the Department of Interior and the Department of Justice argued yesterday, that continuing to drill at these depths without knowing what happened does not make any sense.
Well, that's the Gibatron yesterday. The administration just can't win, right? They lose in court. I didn't think the court was going to lift the moratorium on drilling. I thought the court would just give due deference to the executive branch, but in fact, the court does say you can't do this.
Yeah.
So the administration then is going to appeal, and they said we got this moratorium has to be in place. We continue here with Marco Rubio. He's a rebel with a cause. Okay, Rubio is up against the system in Florida. The Republican hierarchy initially they didn't want to go near you initially, Marco, because they believed that you could be a troublemaker. You could be, but then they see Charlie Crist for what he is, change his party. And now you're out there. You got Chris getting support clearly in some way from the Democrats. They want him to win, obviously. And then you got Kendrick Meek out there. And this race is tight. But you hear Gibbs saying that the people want jobs. The country wants jobs. Meanwhile, Charlie Crist is out there talking about, well, the show's about fossil fuels. We just got to get off them.
Well, the Gibbs statement, first of all, the impact of the impact of the ruling is nil because they're going to issue a new moratorium. They're going to appeal it. And the uncertainty, I mean, these rigs are going to move. They're going to go other parts of the world where they can work. I mean, they're not going to stay around and wait.
Right.
So that's one thing. I mean, the experts that looked at it before it was released said it wasn't necessary. Now you've got a judge saying the same thing. But this is about politics, not about policy. And it's really what it is the result of is an incompetent administration who's looking now to cover up its incompetence on this issue by trying to act tough in rhetoric and in action. And it's counterproductive. Look, one of the things that we have to realize is look at energy policy in the aftermath of the 3 Mile Island disaster, right? It made it harder to build nuclear plants in America. And you know what the result of that has been? It's been more coal-fired plants. That's been the result of this. So we cut off our nose, and hurt ourselves in that effort in terms when everyone knows that nuclear energy is safe and efficient. It's used all over the world. It's something America should have invested in heavily over the last 3 decades, but hasn't as a result of 3 Mile Island. We're starting to see some of the same things being pursued here. So it's unfortunate. I think this administration's handling of this issue has been disastrous, and people and industries are going to pay a price for years, perhaps decades to come.